Good day, flight simmers. Today we're going to do a flight from JFK to Madeira. The airport code for Madeira is Lima Papa Mama Alpha. We're going to do an RNav landing at runway 23. Madeira does not have an ILS frequency for landing, so we're going to have to go RNav. So I'm going to show you how you can do a fast forward, some tips on how to set the plane up. This is about a 7-hour flight, so we're going to shorten it to about 30 minutes. We're going to take off from JFK and then land at Madeira, and we'll skip the in-between part. So we're going to use the world map. I'm going to zoom in, and we are flying the Cessna Citation CJ4, one of my favorite aircraft to fly in Microsoft Sim. It's fast, it's sleek, and a beautiful plane. Its competition is the Beechcraft King Air 350i, which is a turbo twin prop, and this has 2 jet engines, so a little more prestige, but it's nevertheless still very competitive with the Beechcraft, because the Beechcraft is a little cheaper to run. They both cost about $8 million. So here we go at Kennedy International, and we'll set that as our departure. Then we've got to zoom across the ocean to Madeira. Select Madeira as a nice destination. So we'll set it as arrival. Now we have to do high altitude airways. We have to select the runway. So once again, you can see there's no ILS. So we're going to go with runway RNav 23. So if you want to try this flight, those are the settings you can use. And now we're going to hit fly. So it's 6 hours and 18 minutes. You can also look at your nav log if you want to do the whole flight, but I mean, it's literally going to take a long time, so who wants to do all that in-between stuff? The fun part is taking off and landing, of course, to see if you can pull it off. Now, this is just basically for how to fly the plane in Microsoft Flight Simulator. No way would this be how to fly the actual jet, which is far more complicated in the real world. But if we just want to have fun in Microsoft Flight Simulator, this is the way we can do it. So I'm going to hit fly. Then I'm going to set the time of day. I'm going to leave in the early morning hours in the dark, so we arrive in daylight and you can see what's going on for the landing. The takeoff is the easy part with this plane. It almost lifts off all by itself when it hits the proper speed. So right now we're just loading. This is a 40th edition of Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it's new. The latest files, I just loaded them down in 2023. So this is January 2023. I'm doing this flight. So there could be some upgrades and improvements and changes if you're looking at it in the future. So here we are at JFK, beautifully rendered by Microsoft. There's our plane, the CJ4, and we are taxiing out onto the runway. Because we used the world map and picked it, the airport itself, it'll automatically start the plane for us. We don't have to go through the whole checklist, and we're going to find ourselves on the runway ready to depart. So I'm going to hit ready to fly. Throttle's down. Right now I have a master warning on, so that is because the parking brake is on. So there's the parking brake. If you get rid of the throttle there, you can bring it back again. Alright, let's take a look at our altitude. I'm just going to scroll up. You can see it going up here. I'm going to set it at 6,000. So we can just take a quick look at you know, this is a simplified version of flying, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. There's your angle of attack. gauge. Here's your speed gauge. You can see VT 140, V2 is 117, VR is 107, so it's giving you that information right on there. And here is your altitude, which we just set. This is your primary screen. There's our flight plan that we created. And it has to be on Flight Management System 1. You can swap. If you were doing an ILS, you'd swap there when you get close to the airport to pick up the localizer. But we're going to leave it on Flight Management System because it's RNav. And we don't need a frequency for RNav. It's all satellite controlled. This will range in and range out. So I got it zoomed in right now. Here's our second screen, our map screen, landing gear. So going across, these are the different buttons we are going to use and knobs. Autopilot, yaw, damper, altitude, approach. There's a heading, nav, vertical speed, up, down. We're not going to use VNav. And there's your flight director. So let's go down and take a look at you got your avionics switch here. We're going to use to shut the plane down, and some other buttons and switches, some operable, some not, that we don't have to be really concerned about. But I would like to take a look at this screen and show you that this is for tuning your nav frequency. And because you would just punch the numbers in here and they would show up here, and then you'd hit that and you'd get your nav frequency if that was an ILS. So here's our flight plan. Make sure that's correct. That's the airport codes for our origin and destination. Then we're going to hit our legs. So this is important for your RNav. If I hit next, 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 you can see that when we get to Pilum, they want us at 3,000 feet. Now, if you're using air traffic control, they're probably going to be giving you those directions. But I've got it turned off because it can be a little bit annoying when you're trying to do a video. And when we get to Mama Alpha 410, we need to be at 2,000 feet. Now, that's important because if we're not at 2,000 feet, we're probably not going to pick up the glide path. Now, on this plane, it might show glide slope, but really that's for ILS. Normally, on some of your other planes, you're going to see, on an RNav, you're going to see glide path. Okay, so that's pretty much what we need. Here's our lights on. So if we go down a little further, you can see the engines are running. That's how we can shut it down later. We got our speed brake we can put on. Those are our spoilers outside. Right, I'm just going to put that and see what happens here. There they go. See, they're up. So you don't want them up while you're flying or before you land. You want them on when you land. Now I've got a button programmed into my joystick to handle that. There's your throttle, controlled by the throttle on my joystick. There's your flaps. So put them down 15. And that's about it for now. Let's go up above here. And we have set our altitude. Now we're going to take off. I'm just going to pull over to get to the center line, and then basically don't touch the yoke very much because this thing will track pretty good. If you play around with it, it's going to swerve back and forth. Just let it go down the center. And when we hit those various speeds that you saw, I showed you on the speed limit, we can lift off. There we go. Pull back gently on the yoke. Fly straight down the runway and onto I'm going to pull up my landing gear by pressing G on my keyboard. And on my joystick, which is the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro, I'm going to hit a button that I programmed in to do my flaps. So bring up your flaps. So you can do this with your Xbox controller. Just program your buttons to do these things. Also, you can program your joystick to do the same thing. Now, if you try and fly this by keyboard alone and a mouse, it's pretty tough. Much easier with a joystick. So I'm going to go inside the aircraft, and I'm going to turn on the autopilot. I'm going to turn on the nav, and watch your speed. You get into overspeed, and you got to go up. So I'm hitting the vertical speed up, and then I'm going to turn on the flight director, and I'm just going to get my speed down a bit here, so we're not into overspeed. Now, the heading bug comes on and off all by itself when it reaches the right altitude. We don't have to press that. We are going to have to scroll to change the altitude when necessary. So let's take a look outside. Look at this beautiful aircraft. There we go. We're making a turn. We're following our flight plan. Let's take a look at Kennedy. There it is right there. We just took off down the runway there, and now we're circling around. Other airport below us here that we're going to be flying over. So there's the mighty Atlantic off the coast of the United States of America. A little look at New York City in the distance. But let's take a look at this beautiful aircraft. Just love this plane. Now you can put your own tail information on. I just made that up. You can do that in your settings. Alright, everything's looking good. We're doing 212 knots. Flaps are up. Trim is set to 16 to 17. That's being done by the autopilot. Okay, so let's go inside, and you can see we are following our magenta flight plan. So I'm going to go up here and change the time of day. I'm going to change it to night because I want to arrive there in the daylight. So I'll just put it on there for now. Okay, so there we go. Beautiful New York City at night. Yeah, if we try and land this thing in the dark in Madeira, it's going to be a little bit tricky because the glide path using RNav isn't always bang on, and some airports it is and others it's not. So you want to be able to see what you're doing, and especially on your first maiden flight to this destination. So we're just imagining that we got a billionaire that's hired us to be the pilot. He's going there for a 2-week vacation. Extra seat on board is empty. He's taking his family, kids, and he said we can bring along my wife, so we're going to enjoy a 2-week vacation in Madeira. Alrighty, let's shorten this flight. And I'll show you some tips on how to arrive at the approach and not crash. Hopefully we won't anyway. So it asked us if we wanted to move forward, and I said yes. So here we are, it's daylight now, and we're ready to fly. So I'm going to press ready to fly, and I'm going to press the pause button on the okay, the landing gear just went up. That wasn't me, that's just something that happened. So right now this is in pause mode, and you can see we've got a flash warning sign there, and it says fuel and a master caution. So the problem is we've run out of fuel. So we would have had to make a couple stops along the way to refuel. So let's just imagine we did that. So this is how to save your flight, because this thing's going to stall. If I don't do this, the engines will shut down basically because there's no fuel. So it's pretty realistic. So there, I just reset it to 50%, and there's the fuel we now have on board. And you can do calculations like this and make this a lot more fun and complicated for you as you learn more about flying. But this is basic, just for doing Microsoft Flight Sim, not for flying the real aircraft. Now, the other thing you'll probably notice is your lights aren't on. They get turned off, so we'll toggle them on. Strobe lights, logo lights, taxi lights we don't need on, but landing lights we do. Now, remember I mentioned here our different elevations. We've got to be at 2,000. Pilum we have to be at 3,000. Now there's Pilum. So I'll know what we're at right now. Let's have a look. Looks like we're at 3,000. Okay, so what I want to do is set this to 3,000. You never know what's going to happen here. You know, you get all these different elevations. And you see this isn't working. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to use my right mouse button and tap it. And now I can make a change. So I need to get to 3,000. And we've already flown by that. So that's because our nav isn't on. And autopilot is on. So we need to get down in a hurry. Down, down, down to 3,000. Actually, we need to go to 2,000 because here we need to be at 2,000. So I'm going to set that to 2,000. We've already missed our mark there. So we'll see what happens. 2,000. Okay. And is that still on? No, it's off. Okay. So down, 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 down in a hurry. We got to get down to 2,000. So let's have a look here. Okay, we're coming around. So you're not sure where it's going to take you in the sequence when you finally get there. It's not always the same. So this time we were almost at Pilum, and lots of times it might take you way back here, and you got plenty of time. But anyway, this should pick up. The flight director, I'm going to put it on. Vertical speed is off now, so we're down to 2,000, which is good. I'm going to hit approach now. And we're going to see if we can pick up. Let's see if that, I'll turn the yaw damper on as well. The autopilot, that's on. So we're turning now, so we caught things in time. So you got to work really fast when you're... So now I'm going to cut my speed back. You got to work fast when you get there. That's why I paused it. If you don't pause it and correct some of these little issues, like I just did, you're going to end up overshooting your altitude for picking up the RNav glide path. So if you look here, you can see this is in green, GS. That's glide slope, they're calling it. Well, that's fine, but a lot of times it'll be GP. That would be, GS would be for an ILS landing. Anyway, we got to see if we're going to pick up this glide slope. Okay, we're slowing down now, so I'm going to put down my landing gear, and I'm going to put my flaps down. And when you do that, you're going to lose some airspeed. So watch your airspeed. Put the flaps down now too. There's the runway up ahead here. It's hard to see because of the glare of the sun. But watch your speed that you don't. Okay, so we're starting to go down now. So that turned green. So it means we picked up the glide slope. Right there, it's green. It's hard to see, but turned green. So now we're descending. So autopilot's taking care of things. Watch your speed. And also we need to be very careful on our altitude. I'm going to take it off autopilot just before we land and just land it manually, because sometimes it's entirely up to you if you want to leave it sometime and just see what happens, but lots of times it might be just slightly off, not lined up perfect with the runway. Looks like we are here right now, perfectly lined up center line, but our altitude might be a little off. Now press B on your keyboard for your barometric pressure, because that'll make sure you're at your altitude instruments are calculated properly. So I'm going to turn the spoilers on when we land. This plane doesn't have reverse thrust, really doesn't need it. I'm going to be braking and putting up the spoilers. Remember, you can set that speed brake once it gets down, or you can program it into your joystick, and I have it programmed into the joystick. Because it's hard to go inside and scroll down, find that. Now you could use your keyboard as well. That would be even easier than trying to do it inside the plane itself. So now you can see we're descending nicely and lined up, but it looks to me like we're coming in a little low. You see those trees and that little cliff right in front? If that wasn't there, probably wouldn't be an issue. But they look like they're in the way. So I am going to take off the autopilot. 500 feet. I'm going to take the autopilot off right now. Okay? So I'm just going to rise up a little bit, because it looks like we're a little bit low. Okay, so now, yeah, I think we were coming in a little low there. So now just ease off and just pull up slightly, and there we go. Put your spoilers on. Whoop, pulled up a little too much there. Set her down gently. There we go. Spoilers. All right, braking. Okay, so that was coming in a little low. If we had just left it, probably would have crashed into those trees. So now you can put your spoilers down and your flaps up. So that's how you do an RNav landing. So it gets you really close to the point where you can just take over yourself and pick it off autopilot and land. Just going to look, see where we can turn off. I'm not going to use ATC. In order to get them, you just have to go up here and click. And then you can tune Madeira. And you can tune the tower. And you can ask for an exit line. Okay, so I'm just going to turn off here. So, acknowledge ground. You can request a taxi to the gates. But I'm just really, with this plane, you're not going to get any type of really ground services like the larger planes. It's kind of fun. You can request catering, fuel truck, baggage, etc. But you're not going to get that with this plane. They're just going to say it's not available on your smaller aircraft. So I'm just going to go to the spot. I have these blue markers turned on to help direct you when you land, unless you're really familiar with an airport, and it's very difficult to see the markers when they tell you what route to follow. But anyway, I'm just going to pull up here and park, and we'll just shut this thing down. So this would be a typical spot where you'd be asked to go and park anyway. It's not really the gate, but vehicles can, the limo can pull up and take us all to a nice hotel. Okay, so I am going to, okay, that's doing a pushback. Shift P. Why, I don't know. Yeah, Yeah, it started to push back. So what I'm going to do is put on the parking brake. I've got my hand on the brake right now, so every now and then something goofy happens. There's little bugs in the system. I'll put that parking brake on. It shouldn't move anywhere now. Okay. So there's no reverse thrust, so I'm not sure what was going on. They're not supposed to be anyway. Alright, we're here. I'm going to shut her down. So let's turn off the engines. Click there and it flips up. See that little plastic cover? So you don't accidentally shut them off. And you can see the speed brakes are off now. Throttle's all back. Flaps are up. Let's go over here and turn off the avionics master switch. And the flight's over. So thank you very much for joining me on this flight to Madeira. Enjoy your time and hope that you check some other of my videos out. Give it a like if you like it. Subscribe if you want.